Hello and welcome to Positive Parenting. I'm Deanne Conrad, Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District. Positive Parenting is a joint venture between the education professionals of the Sioux Falls School District and the medical and child development professionals from Sanford Health. And we are so glad you're joining us here today. With parenting, there are, of course, lots of daily challenges. And one of those challenges is making sure that our children are eating the proper foods, getting the nutrition that they need, and staying away from those sugary treats and things that everybody really loves. And as a parent, that's a challenge as an adult. So how do we convey that information to children and hope and help them become healthy, nutritious adults one day? So our guests are joining us here today to help us along in that conversation, and we invite Tiffany to introduce herself first.
My name is Tiffany Crooksit. I'm a registered dietitian at Sanford.
Thank you.
And I'm Celeste Bureau, Student Support Services Coordinator with the Sioux Falls School District.
Well, prior to us going on air here, we were talking about my challenge was stress eating. There's a lot that goes into a day. We pack a ton of different activities and our school into the day, our exercise and things like that. Sometimes eating becomes an afterthought. We don't really do a lot of planning and figuring out what's best for us. Would you say that's a big challenge in families?
Challenge. You know, and I see it myself, even in being a dietitian, of trying to plan out the week and, get through the hard times, and there's more stressful times, and kids are busy, and two working parents, it's stressful.
So what's the answer? If we only knew, right?
Right. I think it's important that the families try and plan ahead, try and pack the pantry with, fruits and vegetables and lean meats and nuts and seeds and things like that, and have those foods available.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that there's room for, sweets and things like that. And so with my family, I really try and follow the 90-10 rule. And so 90% of the time, you're consuming foods that help you grow with lots of vitamins and minerals and protein and things like that. But then 10% of the time that you're able to have the sweets and desserts.
Right. And that seems, if you have those things available, the kids and yourself as an adult are more able to grab them quick and grab them on the go, because planning ahead is ideal, but planning a full meal with the fruits, the vegetables, the grains, the proteins, that type of thing is really ideal. But in today's world,
we're busy.
We're so busy. So that is a huge challenge. But to have those things you can grab and maybe, take some seeds or nuts or something and put it in a small baggie and out the door you go.
Out the door, yep.
Yeah.
And then during those times when, maybe on the weekends, then that's maybe you focus on the family time of sitting down and having the meal, and, it's cooked, you're not running out the door and it's in a lunchbox and things like that. But trying to take on those opportunities, because family meals are important, but understanding that, you're going to have those times where you're on the go too.
Yeah, those family meals are so critical. We talk about often in terms of just growing a child socially and emotionally and that type of thing, the importance of having a sit-down meal. While the food is nutritious and important, the conversation is also important.
Absolutely. That's the time when a lot of times we find out a lot about our kids' days, because you're all together, you're kind of not distracted by the eating, but yet you have a common goal that you're doing, and then the conversation just flows from there. So it's a great opportunity and time for parents to ask kids, how was your day today? Or what did you learn this week? Or who played with who? And kids will just kind of flow as they're eating and talking about those things at the supper table.
So having that healthy meal, having a healthy conversation really does lend itself to having a healthy child.
Absolutely, because when you think about it, that's kind of throughout time has been the gathering time when people get together. They get together and have coffee, they get together and they have, like tea. It's been something that's been throughout time, so it's something that we're lucky to be able to capitalize on with kids too.
Right. Important, critical time, and of course the food plays into that as well. One of the things we stress about as parents, I think, is proper weight of our child. And every child is so different when it comes to their structural build and their growth patterns and that type of thing. So it is something that parents need to pay attention to.
Yes.
And I know one of those things that we watch when we take our children in is the growth chart.
Yep. Yep.
And how important is that?
So in the clinical world, I mean, weight, that's something that we monitor. That is a screening tool. So anything over the 85th percentile for BMI is considered overweight. Anything under the 5th percentile is considered underweight. So yes, that is one screening tool, but I think, like you said, there's a lot to take into following their growth curve. In the ages between 11 and 13, a female child could gain up to 15 pounds. For males, it could be up to 30 pounds. So I also think it's important for parents to realize that this time is a big growth. And if you're restricting their calories and their portion sizes and things like that, you can actually hinder their growth. And so really trying to provide for the parents just to be understanding that, this is a critical time in their life. And so trying to provide more fruits and vegetables and lean proteins and whole grains and things like that. But realize that they might go through a more pudgy stage, I guess you would say, and that is very normal. If a parent is concerned about a child's weight, I would recommend they meet with their family practice or pediatrician and get a team involvement, because they're at such a crucial age, and what you do now is going to affect them later in life. I've seen many adults who maybe their parent restricted them from food, or they cut back on their portion sizes, or they made them go running, and it's affected them later in life.
It is such a balance in terms of, we talked about that social and emotional, and so we have this body image piece that we think we know the way we should look, or, well, my friend looks this way and I should look more like her, or an athlete looks like this. So that's a really, and particularly, especially that time, as you noted, the 11 through 14-year-olds, that's such a growth and mind development period as well. There's so many things happening in a child's body that it really can bring up some challenges, some really internal struggles for
Absolutely,
for kids.
and a crucial time, I think, for parents and for kids to have good conversations that aren't focused on the negative of, I'm getting fatter, or I'm getting pudgier, or saying that to a child, or also for parents focusing on their weight to talk about it excessively as well. That can be very detrimental to children, because they'll internalize what their parents say and think that that is the ultimate, and then judge themselves from there. And so it can be very important to just talk about healthy eating, eating to live. What does that look like? The 90-10 rule or the 80-20 rule, anything like that to help with that. And then talk about healthy eating, or foods that are lower in calorie and those that are higher, and wondering why that is. Because also I've heard kids say a lot, especially as they're older, middle and high schools, they call themselves hangry. So they get angry and they're hungry at the same time. And so then they know that they need to eat. And then listening to their body messages and really tuning into that, kind of that mindfulness of why we do what we do. And by doing that in a positive way, I think a lot of things take care of themselves rather than focusing on that negative.
Right. I'd imagine with 24,000 students, we have students that have challenges seeing themselves as, in a positive way. And so how can school counselors help? What happens if a parent identifies that this may be an issue that my child is obsessing about, where they just really don't know what to do?
Oh, absolutely. Getting to know the child is everything, and getting to know the families is everything too. And then connecting them also with resources we have in town. Like, we have wonderful medical facilities like Sanford to get them connected with just some educational pieces. If we can't provide that and that's out of our scope of practice, that's a good way to do it. But just really kind of listening to the child and what they have to say, and countering those erroneous cognitions that they have, those thoughts that they have that we know are not really appropriate for their age, like I'm fat. Well, what do you mean by I'm fat? What is it that you're not happy about when it comes to that? And what makes you believe that, and label it that you're fat? And really delving into their thought processes to see what is inaccurate and how to kind of put them on that positive path again, and thinking about eating and their weight in a positive way.
Right. So I want to circle back to something Celeste said about hangry. I think it's probably only been in the last year or so I've heard that term, but I have a couple of friends who have identified their children as hangry. And I guess I kind of see it sometimes in myself and in my own children, that maybe they haven't or what they've eaten hasn't stuck with them, and so they're just getting frustrated with things. But that term is an interesting one.
Yeah, it is, and that's why snacks are so important throughout the day, because typically, no matter what you eat, within 3 to 4 hours, your blood sugar is going to drop. When your blood sugar drops, that's when you're going to start feeling hungry again. So if a child has gone from, eating lunch at 11:30 and now it's 6:30 at night, that is a long period of time. One, they're a child, and so they have lots of calorie needs for growth. But two, even for adults, that's too long to go.
Right.
And so trying to have a healthy snack in between meals prevents those hangry feelings.
Well, I find it interesting, but I also find it, as I reflect, probably something that I've experienced myself as well.
Yeah.
What about some of these supplements and things like that you can buy, the protein drink and that type of thing? Are those good for kids, or should we stay away from that?
My first thought is always food first. Those options, you're just not sure what go in them, and so I always cautious when it comes to those types of things.
Sure. They may have a place, but not your first choice.
Not my first choice, no. And really, children, they don't need that. They should be getting they can achieve adequate protein. There's so many protein supplements out there. They can get adequate protein within their diet alone.
Okay. I know a lot of children have, if you talk about school lunch, they don't necessarily want to eat what's presented to them. And we are required by federal law to have meals that meet food guidelines, and with the grams of the protein and the grams of fat and sugar content and those types of things. So it is required to be a balanced meal, so parents can feel comfortable in knowing that, their options are at least balanced, and they should be getting a good meal from there. But kids might not be meat eaters, or they might not be vegetable eaters. So how do you turn the tide on that?
So then when you go home at night, you really try and focus, or in the morning, try and go through things that they do like. So maybe if it's making a smoothie, you add spinach or some vegetables to that, or in the evening kind of catering to something that they will eat. I remember too, when I was a child, vegetables were not my highest priority. But I think about those athletes as well, and I don't think that there's enough. I don't think some of those young athletes realize the importance of having those fruits and vegetables. I mean, for any child, but those athletes specifically. I mean, some of them need 9 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That's a lot.
Wow.
And so if you're skipping out on that lunch meal and just having, I think back to myself even, of having just like an ice cream sandwich, you go to the snack bar and just have an ice cream sandwich. But that's
Hey, but you're getting your calcium.
Yeah.
Thinking back to when I was high school, right?
But that's a that's a meal that they've missed a lot of protein and a lot of opportunity for fruits and vegetables. And so I think a lot of it is education, and just having that open communication with children and making them realize the importance of why we eat our fruits and vegetables.
And really finding a couple of fruits and vegetables. I mean, my kids are not, we are not eating kale at our house, or the more strange. We're the pretty common line.
Yeah.
The green beans, the peas, the corn, carrots, that type of thing, potatoes and things like that. So, even finding a variety of ways to make them that are
well, and involving
different.
The children. I think for me, even sometimes, trying new recipes and things like that, but involve the kids, have them cut up the fruit or have them cut up the carrots, and so that they feel a part of it. I think that's big too.
Funny story, my son, they're having a food drive at their school, and he went to the pantry just last night, and he was picking his least favorite things. He said, you can get rid of those. Get rid of those. No. So we balanced it out with a few fruits and vegetables and a few other dinner type meals, but that was the first to go. If given the opportunity, we're going to get rid of those vegetables. So,
That's so funny.
Yeah. So again, that body image, when we think of athletes, and they're, as you said, expending so many calories during their workouts and things like that. They need that those fruits and vegetables. Also, our nutrition classes and our health and physical education classes focus a lot on that too, and proper nutrition.
Absolutely, and teaching the food pyramid and everything there is that goes into eating. And I really do think, just from having kids myself and listening to their friends when they talk, when they take those classes, they really do want to eat healthily. They like that draw of the ice cream sandwich and those things, but they really are curious about it. And I think getting them involved is pivotal at those times, and letting them have some control and figuring out how to do that. And food preparation, like you said, that has so much to do with it. We are just inundated now with channels on networks that even have food channels that they can tell you how to spice foods in a way that's healthy and those things. That's a great pathway to also have kids, try something that they saw on like Food Network that was healthy or that was seasoned in a certain way that might change the flavor. I even saw one day where they had a cauliflower pizza where that was the crust.
Yes, I've heard
and
that.
so my daughter wanted to make it and it actually was very good and didn't quite taste like cauliflower, so it worked.
It's a bonus,
That
right?
was a
There's a bonus. So yes, and again, it's a great point you bring up is, we are inundated with these images of food, but it can be, if we take our time to look in the right places, it can be inundated with the right kind of things like different spices and things like that that you could eat, add to make things seem a little different than still getting that vegetable, but maybe with a little zing. So yes, and stay away from cupcake wars then. So that's
or in
the one.
moderation.
Right, that's the one my kids like to watch. So we're coming up on the end of our time. Any final thoughts that you think parents should be considering as they're juggling this and trying to balance busy schedules and nutrition and just growth for their children?
I think the biggest thing is to realize that nobody's perfect. Nobody has a perfect diet. And so not to worry about if they're not getting their fruits and vegetables every day. Some days are going to be better than others. But I think the biggest thing for parents is to listen. If a child has something, if they're dealing with their weight or something like that, but always be there and have that line of communication open. Really I think key into developing healthy body image and these healthy habits later on in life is nurturing and self-esteem and things like that. And that is so crucial at this age because that affects them later in life and that affects them with what the decisions that they make.
Right. And those children become adults who then become parents.
Right.
And so those cyclical things are
they're so precious.
Important. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts that you would add, Celeste, about just keeping on top of the conversation with our
Absolutely.
kids?
Well, and you don't have to make it harder. I think sometimes we make it harder as parents. We think it's going to be a lot of work and stuff, and just caring for themselves, models for their children, and then thinking of it in a positive way. How can I turn this conversation to a positive and what I can do about it? So I think that's a big impact for yourself as well as for your children.
Right. So do what you can to get the fruits and vegetables into the house. Even today, in today's world, you can buy the pre-cut vegetables, that are pretty much just wash and go and put them in a little baggie and head out the door. So much better than chips or, something else that seems more on the go. But there are a lot of options out there. So we just need to keep our eyes open to make sure that we're providing the right kind of example for our children into the future with their health and their nutrition. So thanks for joining us today on Positive Parenting.